What's up, Limeys? My name is Stephanie Spicer, and I'm a Limey too. Recently, I read the book The Princess Bride, but not the original version by S. Morgenstern. I read the Good Parts version, which was put together by William Goldman for his 10-year-old son. When Goldman realized that his own father had actually done the same for him, skipping the difficult and boring parts while reading the book to his son who was recovering from illness. This version was later turned into the classic 1987 movie, which is so well loved by many. One thing I noticed when I first started exploring the world of Lyme disease by reading blogs and articles and going to support groups was that eventually all of these resources fell into the same pattern. They all had a section or a tab that was entitled My Story, which was basically a horrific chronicle of the progression of all of the symptoms and disabilities of the person telling the story. Though I know that on one hand it can be validating to read about symptoms that you yourself have had and to know that you're not the only one and that there is a name for that, after a while I just found these entries depressing. When I decided to start my own Lyme channel, I considered having a My Story video, but then I had a better idea. A Good Parts version. Since all the stories of Lyme disease progression follow basically the same depressing arc, I'm going to start in the middle, when I started treatment and started getting better. I used to think Lyme damage was irreversible. Every time I would get a new symptom, I would think, great, another problem that I have to live with for the rest of my life. But reading Brian Rosner's book, Lyme Disease and Rife Machines in 2009, I began to feel hope that not only could further damage be avoided, but that the damage already done could be turned around. One of the last symptoms I had gotten, and the one that actually scared me enough to try to find solutions, was a disturbing spinning sensation in my brain. I literally felt like I was losing my mind, going insane. When I started treatment, this was one of the first symptoms to go away. Another thing that I noticed was that my first period after starting treatment was much less severe than the one before. I had had a steady progression of worsening periods from the time I was about 18. The pain was nearly unbearable, and I used to take way more pain medication than advised. The lighter periods were one of the most obvious signs that treatment was actually working, and they were what kept me actively treating, trying to fit in as many treatments as possible in between. Having learned about herxing from Brian Rosner's book, I had decided to quit my job before starting treatment so that I could focus on recovery. But my herxing was actually a lot more bearable than I had expected, and after a few months I was able to return to working first part-time then full-time. During those early days, I set an easy goal for myself. Try to do one useful thing per day. Now I'm able to not only work full-time, but to live independently, wash my clothes, take care of my home and car, buy groceries, and even have time and energy to work on my art and videos. As a kid, I used to love cooking and baking, but those hobbies became burdens with my greatly reduced levels of energy. And as an adult, I could just barely manage to pull off feeding myself, and maybe doing a baking project every once in a while as fast as possible. Now I bake about once a week and cook almost all my meals from scratch, and I really enjoy that part of my life. Likewise, I used to hate washing the dishes and doing housework, but I even enjoy doing chores these days. When you can't do it, you realize what a privilege work actually is. I used to walk somewhere and feel incapable of walking back. I used to often lie on the floor because I couldn't make it to my bed. I used to sleep in my clothes a lot because I was too tired to put on pajamas. I don't do those things anymore. I live on the 4th floor of a building with no elevator, and I don't mind taking the stairs. My OCD has improved, I no longer have a strong sensitivity to mold and chemicals, and I now feel more capable of differentiating between the symptoms of various infections, herxing, and medical side effects, whereas before it was just a big jumble of confusion and pain. I used to have extremely vivid dreams and a lot of nightmares. Sometimes my dreams seemed more real than my reality. I would remember dreams as if they were actual memories, while real life was foggier. Now I'm more tethered to reality and my dream life has calmed down a lot. I still have bad days, but much less than before and much farther in between. I used to sometimes be in bed for weeks at a time. Now I basically never have more than 2 bad days in a row, and more often it's just one day where I need to take things easier, not be completely incapacitated. I'm not all the way better yet, but even if the way that my life is now was as good as it gets, I'd say that hands down, treatment has been worth it. But I'm not going to stop treating until every single one of these pathogens is gone out of my body. I've been able to experience so much life during these last 13 years since I started, instead of being dead or completely disabled, as I'm sure I would have been otherwise. And I'm looking forward to the rest of my life.